Hey everyone, welcome to Season 5, Episode 4 of the Choose UCalgary podcast. For those who are tuning in for the very first time, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And for our returning listeners, I just want to say welcome back. My name is Aidyn, and I am your Choose UCalgary podcast host. And on this podcast, we bring on current students or faculty members at the University of Calgary just to chat about different areas across campus, such as clubs, research opportunities, different faculties, different involvements, extracurriculars, etc. And our most important goal is to just get our prospective students a better understanding of what it's like to attend our university. So for today's episode, I'm joined here with special guest Joel May. Joel is the Assistant Registrar, Student Financial Support here at the University of Calgary, and he is here to answer all of our questions regarding awards, scholarships, bursaries, and even a bit about student loans. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about all of this. And with that being said, welcome, Joel. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Would you be able to introduce yourself a little bit further?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Aidyn. It's great to be on the podcast and talk to the campus community and all the prospective students and students on campus. So as you said before, I'm Joel May, and I'm the Assistant Registrar for Student Financial Support here at the University of Calgary. And what that entails is that my team looks after all need-based funding. So that's bursaries and student loans for the entire institution, as well as all merit-based funding, so scholarships and awards for any undergraduate and professional faculty students. So that's vet med, and law. Yeah, so that's about it. I've been in the role for about 4 years now, and we've seen a lot of growth. So if you think of our awards and scholarships that we provide to students every single year, in 4 years, it's grown by about 35%. So it's quite a big increase. And we have a lot of scholarships and awards for students. So always recommend that everyone applies as much as they possibly can. So
for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Awesome. So I guess we'll kind of hop right in. I want to kind of start off with the topic of student loans. You can just briefly kind of go over that and
Sure.
what it is. So would you be able to tell us what the difference between a loan and a grant is?
Sure. The main difference between a loan and a grant is a grant you don't have to pay back. It's money that goes directly to the student. The student doesn't have to pay it back, where a loan you do have to pay back. So when we talk about student loans and grants, you're looking at the provincial financial aid for students. So in Alberta, you're looking at Alberta Student Aid, BC Student Aid BC. In Ontario, you're looking at Ontario Student Assistance Program. Encompassed in financial aid is both loans and grants. So, and the main difference is loans you have to pay back. So it's like getting a bank loan or anything. The interest rate's low. In Alberta, it's prime +1, but nationally it's prime. And then grants are funds that you don't have to pay back. The federal grant this last year was $6,000. So that's $6,000 of someone's funds that they don't have to pay back. And then in Alberta, it's based on if you have a lower income, there's the Alberta Grant, and there's grants for students with disabilities as well. But it's a great thing. So when you apply for a student loan, especially in Alberta, you'll be assessed for both grants and loans in one application. Don't worry about it. And if you get grant funding, that's a benefit because you don't have to pay it back, and it lessens your debt load as you go through your studies.
Nice. That sounds great. So how would a student go about applying for a loan or a grant? And is it different for different provinces or even international students?
Definitely would be. When it comes to provincial, it all depends on your province of residence. So if you're currently living in British Columbia, you would have to apply through Student Aid BC, and in Alberta, you apply through Alberta Student Aid. If you're from Ontario, it's OSAP. If it's from Saskatchewan, it's Saskatchewan Student Loans, etc. Every province and territory governs their own financial aid programs. So you actually have to apply from your province of residence, and residence is usually looked at is if you've lived there for 12 consecutive months, or your parents live there for 12 consecutive months, that would be considered your residence. For a lot of our entering students, usually it's where you've been living your entire life or majority of your life, and that's where you apply from. And when it comes to international, here at the University of Calgary, we only help administer U.S. direct loans. So that's through federal student aid in the government of the United States of America. When it comes to other international students, you really have to look into what's offered in your country. You really have to look into it. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of the 200 plus countries across the world on which have it and which don't. So you really have to do some searching yourself.
No, that's okay. Thank you so much. So how does your team play a role in student loans?
My team plays a significant role. We do a lot of the advising. So when you send email questions, that's my team who responds to it. And we work really closely with enrollment services, the frontline advising here at the university. And then we're the ones who confirm whether or not you're a full-time or part-time student. We provide program information. So if you're from Saskatchewan, for example, or Ontario or another province outside of Alberta, they want to know the program information. So your program costs, your dates of study for that year, and we have to provide that and sign off on that. Before you actually even get approved for a loan, we have to do that. So that's main roles. And then we do final confirmation. So we'll actually get a request from your lender or province, and we will be the ones that say, yes, you are a student attending here. Yes, you are full-time. And then, yes, it can be dispersed to you. One big thing that's different for the University of Calgary compared to a lot of other institutions is we don't request any of the money to go towards your tuition and fees. All the money goes directly to you, and then you decide if you're going to pay using your loan or grant funds.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that we were different in that way. Nice. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about loans, moving on from that, I know that the University of Calgary, we provide like scholarships, awards, and bursaries. Would you be able to tell us the difference between those three things?
Sure. And technically, once you're an upperclassman on campus, we actually have prizes as well. So there's 4 distinct kind of categories. When you think about scholarship, and this is probably the ones that most people know of, scholarships, the selection is primarily based on academic merit. So those tend to be for our high achieving students. So those who have admissions averages of 85 to 100%, and those who continuing students have a GPA of above 3.2. That's the absolute minimum. So that's scholarships. There could be other requirements on top of that, but the primary selection criteria is academic merit. Then we have bursaries, and bursaries are need-based. So the primary selection criteria is financial need. And when we look at financial need, is if your educational costs outweigh the resources that you have available, then you have a need. So bursaries are used for that purpose, to kind of fill that gap. So if you have a financial need, there's bursaries out there for you. Then when we talk about awards here at the University of Calgary, it's twofold. There's one, we talk about awards as everything that we have are awards. So it's a large kind of grouping, but then we also have specific named awards that really have multiple different criteria. They could have some academic merit piece, it could be a need piece, but there's also something else, whether it be extracurricular activities or community service or involvement with athletics, or it could be involvement with groups or clubs on campus. Those tend to be our awards. And then we have prizes, and prizes are based on top marks either on an assignment or in a course. So that's usually, we don't have any prizes for anything below third year. So third and fourth year, you might have the opportunity to receive one of those. They're nominated by the faculty.
Okay. So yeah, awards kind of blankets a ton of different things, but whereas scholarships is more academic based, and then bursaries is needs based, and prizes are upperclassmen.
Yep.
So how does a student know which scholarships or awards that they would be eligible for?
Sure. This is a tougher question because we have so many. We have almost 2,000 different award scholarships and bursaries available here at the university. A good starting point is just to go to ucalgary.ca/awards, and we have a searchable database where you can kind of search for awards based on your year of study, or if you're domestic or international, or there's a few other criteria, like if you're Indigenous, you can search there. But when it comes to actually kind of applying for awards, we've tried to simplify the application process, and you really just apply through a couple different applications, and then we will assess which awards you're eligible for. So for example, for our high school awards application, which runs October 1st till March 1st, there are 700 plus awards attached to that award application. You don't select which awards, you just fill out all the information as complete as possible. And then my team will run assessment, and then whoever comes out of that assessment are the ones who are going to receive the awards.
Okay, so they don't really have to specifically apply for one award. It's just they apply in a general application, and then your team does all the kind of back end work of figuring out which ones that they're eligible for.
Yeah, and we've tried to make it as simple as possible. So we have a system that runs a lot of it. Try to make it as objective as possible, so it's fairly clear. There are a couple exceptions to that, though. We do have Alberta Student Aid scholarship, and you do have to apply for specific awards there, but that's not that many. There's only 5, so it's not a lot.
Okay, yeah, definitely less than 700.
Yeah.
Are there any students who would not be eligible for the entrance awards then?
There definitely are. The real exception for anyone for entrance awards is if you're a transfer student. So if you're being admitted with over 4 courses of transfer credit, you won't be eligible, and that's kind of an admissions thing. The other reason you wouldn't be eligible is because you're not registered full-time. So you have to be full-time to receive any scholarships and awards here at the University of Calgary, and full-time is 3 courses per semester. So it's not a full course load, which is 5, but it's a minimum of 3 courses.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, thanks. So I know you kind of briefly mentioned this, but what sorts of deadlines can we expect for the awards and scholarships? Would it be the same as the application deadline for admission, or do they have their own deadlines?
Well, when we're talking about entering students, we have 2 distinct deadlines. So our first deadline is coming up relatively quickly. It's December 1st, and that's for our high school prestige awards. Those are our awards for really high achieving students, and they vary in dollar amounts from $37,000 all the way up to $100,000. So they're quite prestigious. So the deadline is December 1st. Then for our high school awards, the deadline is March 1st. So you have a little bit more time for applying for those. We also have automatic awards as well. So anyone who has an admissions average of 95% or greater can receive our President's Admission Scholarship of $5,000, and students who are in the International Baccalaureate program and are planning on doing the full diploma, if you have a diploma score of 35 or greater, then you're eligible for $2,000 automatically as well.
Start getting excited about your application to the University of Calgary by exploring all of the unique programs we have to offer. With over 250 programs to choose from, there's truly something for everyone. Check out the link in the episode notes for more information. So what are some interesting awards or scholarships that maybe students are not aware of?
We have one. It's a little bit dated. I think it's from the 80s, but it's for students who are non-smokers. So which the majority of our incoming students are. We have awards that if you're involved in Boys and Girls Club, for example, if you play ringettes, if you're from Lethbridge, if you are part of a 4-H club, if your parents part of AUPE, there's multiple different ones that have different interesting selection. But yeah, there's quite a few, but you'll see that when you go into the application, because we have an activities and clubs kind of in societies section, and there's lots of different checkboxes for that. We also have awards for military or family of ex-military, for example, as well. Yeah, there's a few interesting ones. I think they're all interesting in my mind, so it's hard to really pinpoint which ones. But for weird selection, I think the non-smoker one always comes up as one of the weirdest ones.
Yeah, I definitely did not know about that one. That's kind of interesting for sure. So aside from the weird, interesting ones, what are some of the most significant scholarships that we offer? And do we offer any full ride scholarships?
Sure, I can touch on that. So as I said before, we have our Prestige High School Awards. Those are our highest dollar value awards here that we have at the University of Calgary. Our highest dollar value award is for students entering the Haskayne School of Business, and it's the Richard and Lois, and that's $100,000, so $25,000 per year over 4 years. Unfortunately, it's just for Canadian permanent residents and protected persons of Canada. International students aren't eligible for it, but we do have our next highest scholarship is our International Entrance Scholarship, and we offer 2 of these per year, and they're $80,000. So that's $20,000 per year over 4 years. We don't actually have anything, and I know a lot of students ask this, especially international students, want to know if we do have full ride scholarships. We don't have anything that's a specific full ride, but the $80,000 probably as close as we can get to full ride. Plus, if you receive that, you might also be eligible for the President's Admission Scholarship, so you might have $25,000, or if you have the IB as well, you might have $27,000 in the first year. So there's quite a bit of funding, but nothing specific where it's full ride. I think that tends to happen in the US, where they can cover full tuition and fees and residence and everything like that, but not as much here in Canada.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So students if they are eligible for multiple scholarships, they have a chance to receive more than one. It's not just one that they can get. Is there a limit to how many they can receive?
Yeah, we try to follow a policy that was approved by executive way past my time, probably even way back in the 70s, might have been in the 80s, where there's a policy that the university follows that's called Equitable Distribution. So we try to distribute as many awards, scholarships, and bursaries to as many students as possible. So we try to limit the maximum that anyone can receive when it comes to multiple awards. But we do have some exceptions. So as I said before, there's the International Entrance Scholarship that's $20,000. We will not include that in the calculation because that award itself is more than $15,000 in a year. There have been students who have gotten close to $30,000 in their first year. So the opportunity is there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you. How would a student get notified if they've received a scholarship or an award?
Primary notification process is via email. So if you applied for high school awards and you received one, you would get an email by the end of April at the absolute latest. For any entering awards, scholarships, and bursaries, we will always notify you before you have to make your decision on whether or not to attend here at the University of Calgary. So your admissions deposit is due May 1st. So you'll know if you received a scholarship, award, or bursary by the end of April at the latest. If you're lucky enough to receive a prestige award, you will actually receive a call directly from me before you actually receive the email. So I will call you probably after school in the afternoon. International students, unfortunately, I don't know if I'll be able to call or not, but you'll receive that email for sure, which is quite exciting. But yeah, that happens in March. So we always select and notify our prestige award recipients before we do even start doing selection for high school awards. So that'll be usually beginning of March, middle of March, around there.
Okay, nice. That must be kind of cool to be able to actually call them and deliver the news sort of over the phone instead of just an email.
Yeah, it's fun. There was some last year too that I was able to do Zoom calls with, see their physical reaction as well. So it's quite nice.
Yeah. That's so nice. That's great. Okay, well, I guess we're kind of wrapping things up here soon. So the last question that I have is, are there any tips or advice that you have for students who are thinking about applying for scholarships and awards? They're kind of looking into it, but they're not really too sure. What would you want to tell them?
Apply. You don't think about it, just do it. It's if you're applying for admissions, if you've applied for admissions, submit your applications for awards too. I don't know. I think it was Wayne Gretzky who said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
yes,
you're not going to get awards. You're not going to get scholarships. This will help you as you progress, especially if you receive one. Even if it's $1,000, that'll lessen your tuition and fees for the year. It'll become less of a burden for you. I always recommend to apply. And when it comes to our two main award applications for entering students, focus right now until December on the Prestige Award application, because that one is more time consuming. It's mainly essay and long answer questions. So you have to be very thoughtful and mindful of your responses. We always look for quality over quantity. The selection committees are quite thorough. So make sure you do spend as much time as you can on that. And then once that's completed, then focus on your high school awards application, because the deadline's not till March. It doesn't matter if you submit your application today or if you submit it on March 1st. You'll still have the same opportunity to receive those awards that are tied to that application. So those are kind of the big tips. I always recommend I dive a little bit deeper in. I have a couple webinars that students might be able to attend. But yeah, always look into those. And my webinars are always recorded too. So make sure you go to the Choose UCalgary YouTube channel and make sure you listen to anything that comes out of that as well.
Yes, for sure. I will definitely have everything linked in the episode notes of this podcast. I can be sure to leave a couple of your webinars there, and from there they can just access the Choose UCalgary YouTube channel and explore any other webinars that they might want more information on. So
Perfect.
Thanks for mentioning that. And thank you for those tips and pieces of advice. I'm sure that the students will really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really enjoyed having you on and learning more about student financial aid and what your team does. And yeah, just learning more about the difference between everything as well. Thank you for sharing everything. And thank you for being a great guest on the podcast.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I always get excited about the opportunity to actually share the information for students so they can be better prepared for when they're here on campus.
Yes, for sure. And we hope that it gets them excited. And now that they understand this a bit more, it makes the whole process easier for applying. So thank you, Joel, so much for sharing all of this useful information with us and for being such a great guest to have on the Choose UCalgary podcast. I know our prospective student listeners will truly appreciate everything that you shared. And speaking of our listeners, I just want to quickly thank everyone for tuning in today. And if anyone is interested in finding out more information about anything that we chatted about, please just take a look at the episode notes, as I will have everything linked there for you as always. And lastly, if you have any questions for me at all regarding UCalgary, please just send me a DM on Instagram at choose.ucalgary or send a direct message to the UCalgary Future Students Facebook page, and I'm more than happy to chat with anyone on those two platforms. So yeah, one last thanks to Joel for taking the time to be here today, and that's all for now. So we'll be back again soon for our next episode.